Hey, thanks for coming out tonight. Some of you were here yesterday for our recognition dinner I had, so 2 nights in a row. That's awesome. My name's Steve McCauley. I'm your chief of police. And tonight, we've been doing this for the last several years. We do an annual safety and security meeting right around this time of year, especially as we head into the holidays, because we tend to see possibly more burglaries, more related crimes. And so what we want to do tonight is talk about burglaries. We're also going to give you an overview of the department, our investigations division, our dispatch, and traffic. And what we'd like to do after each brief presentation is take questions in the room, and then we're going to go to Zoom, and then we're going to go on to each division and do the same thing. And then at the end, because the favorite part of these is the questions that are on your mind that you want to ask us that we can answer, and that's the most important part. Brief overview of our department. We have a total of 30 personnel, 21 are police officers. They're a very great group. I'm very proud of them. Night shift, we typically have 3 people out and about patrolling. And then during the day with our normal 3 officers and our school resource officer who's here, myself and the commander, we sometimes have 8 to 9 for very good coverage. And what I'm really proud of is our response time. Whatever the issue is, if it's an emergency, we're going to be there in less than 3 minutes, and that means 2 people, and that means you might see me. If it's not that big a deal, maybe 5 minutes. And if it's really something that can wait, 8. And in comparison, if you're in a large metropolitan area like Boston, where I just was, or New York, if you need a police officer right now, it can be 10, 12, 15 minutes to give you sort of a sense. So we're really proud of that. I know a lot of you are here tonight, which I'm glad that you are. Our recent burglaries, we've had a couple just recently. So far this year, we've had 26, which is about the average for us. We typically have about 2 a month. That's still 2 a month too many. I'd love to get it down to 0. And then we're working on that. I was just talking with one of the people who are here today who was one recently burglarized. It's very frustrating. It's also frustrating for us when we're investigating. To give you an example, of the 2 million burglaries that occurred in the United States last year, who has a guess as to how many of those were solved? Anybody want to gather a guess? 300? More than that, but less than 10%. Less than 10%. So it gives you a sense. It isn't just us that are frustrated. It's police officers across the country. And we'll explain why it's so frustrating for us and the limited information that we have to go on. The most important thing that you can do and you need to do, again, speaking with someone that came in tonight, if you haven't signed up for the alerts that the city puts out, that's the best way for you to reach us. And you can go online and sign up for alerts from the police department, from Public Works, from the town. Every time there's a burglary, we push information out about the burglary so you're aware, sort of the MO. But the most important thing that residents can do for us, these burglars are not dumb. Their MO, and again, we've had issues of people coming from outside the country and anything else. It doesn't matter where they're coming from. What matters is they're coming to your home, they're targeting the master bedroom. Everybody master bedroom. I don't have very much stuff. It's in my master bedroom. But they target the master bedroom. They're looking for jewelry. They're looking for purses. They're looking for safes that are all in the master bedroom. So what we've been saying repeatedly for the last 5 or 6 years is you've got to protect yourself and you've got to keep your stuff out of your master bedroom. I can go on and on too about each and every time we come to a burglary, most of the time, nobody's home. They don't want anyone to be home, but the house looks like nobody's home. There's no lights on. There's no exterior lights on. There's no alarm system. If they have an alarm system. So we really need residents to do their part to assist us by making it hard for these burglary suspects. And the more often that they're not successful, they're going to go somewhere else. And, you know, we're proud of our town, and it's all exciting when we get voted as the most wealthiest town in the country. I kind of cringe because I'm the same with my police chief in Hillsborough, because we battle of who's the richest community. It puts a target on our back and your backs because they know, well, if they're the richest, they must have stuff. And I can tell you from past burglaries, you guys do have stuff. I think our monetary loss is close to 2 million so far this year. The first big burglary that we had several years ago was almost $1 million of jewelry unsecured in a master bedroom in a house that was dark and no alarm system. So I really got to plead and beg to you guys to listen to what we're saying and please do what we're saying. That's really the only way that we're going to solve this problem. We're probably never going to actually get down to zero. There's always going to be an issue, but we got them at you. I'm going to introduce my commander, Dan Larson. I always say he's the one that does the real work. He's amazing, and he's going to, you can make whatever comments you want, and we're going to introduce each of our division heads to talk about, the first one's investigation, so we're going to get right into burglaries. I'd ask you to hold your questions until the presentation is done by group. Then I want to take your questions. We want to go to Zoom and take questions. And then at the end, fair game, you can ask us anything.
All right. Thank you, Chief. And good evening, everyone. It's great to see you here in person and also to everyone who's here virtually. So I don't want to take up any more of anyone's time because we have a lot of important things to go over with our staff. And really tonight, our staff, we want them to be the highlight because they're going to come up and they're going to talk about what they do with the police department and what their role is. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Detective Sergeant Taylor.
I'm Jeff Taylor. I'm in charge of the investigations unit here at Atherton PD. We hold a lot of hats here. We're a pretty small agency, so just because I'm the detective sergeant doesn't mean I'm just doing investigations. Also on my team, I have 2 code enforcement officers, a school resource officer, and a support services coordinator. So one of the things I'd like to highlight, or a few things that I'd like to highlight, is some of the fun stuff that we're doing that's actually a proactive approach to the crimes that we typically see here in Atherton. One of which is the BAIT program, I'm sure you guys have all heard of, and how we're using this specific device in different sort of ways throughout our community. Next slide. So the APD BAIT program, what is it? If you guys are familiar with some movies that have seen a device that's kind of like hidden in a stack of money or that's stolen during the course of a robbery from a bank or something like that, it's essentially the same thing. It's used everywhere across the entire country. We use this same exact corporation, and it's essentially the size of a cell phone, a little bit smaller. And what we were able to do with that is hide it in things that we know will most likely get stolen and put it in places that are likely to actually get taken. So one of the things we've seen in town is an increase in the amount of bike theft, specifically at a lot of our schools. So if you can hit the next slide. I'd like to highlight one of our recent cases that we had to deal with. It was at Menlo Atherton High School. It was during school hours. We had a BAIT bike activation. So the way this works is kind of a set it and forget it. We put this device, we plant it on a bicycle in a particular area where it's not super obvious to anybody to walk past and notice that this thing exists. It just looks like a normal everyday bike, nothing out of the norm. So then when this bike gets moved, more than just getting bumped or maybe somebody coming by and brushing past it or something along those lines, if somebody's actively like messing around with it, looks like they're trying to break a lock, which we typically actually lock the bike as well, it'll send us an alert, and that alert goes straight to our dispatch center. We will then get notified, all of patrol staff, that we have a BAIT bike activation, and we will know exactly where it is and where it's moving. It is a GPS device. So in this particular case, we had a BAIT bike activation at Menlo Atherton. Units began to respond, and we contacted a suspect at the campus who was right in the area of the bike. He admitted to being there and touching the bike. We ended up bringing him back to the PD and did an interview, and we got this particular suspect admitted to stealing one bike on average every single week from Menlo Atherton High School for the last 2 to 3 years. Not only did he admit to that, he admitted to also stealing approximately 7 to 8 bikes from Stanford University campus for the last 4 years. So if you can imagine how many bikes that would add up to be, and rattling off how many or how much he was getting for each bike when he would flip it for cash to whoever he was able to make a sell in the greater Bay Area, you can imagine how many bikes and how much money this guy was making just off of these 2 locations alone. Next slide, please. Another example of bait bike activation success would be, again, in this particular situation, Menlo Atherton High School. We had a bait bike activation. Units responded. We made contact with a suspect. It was early morning hours, about half an hour, 45 minutes before the school hours actually started. The individual was not very compliant, but in order to de-escalate the situation, there was conversation basically saying, look, you go your separate way, leave the school campus, kids are coming in, we don't want to be here and we don't want you to be here. Gather your belongings only and leave. There was an agreement made. We left the scene. About 10, 15 minutes later, again, our bicycle was still on scene. We got a reactivation of the same bike and it started moving. Sure enough, we get there. We knew exactly where it was. We can see exactly how fast it's going, and the distance that it had traveled. So we contact the subject again, and this time it wasn't just going to be a friendly conversation. So we knew that he had our bike. We knew he had the device. He admitted to it. Come to find out, he was a sex registrant. He had he was not allowed to be on school grounds, obviously. He was trespassing. He had possession of alcohol and was actually consuming alcohol at the time. He then threatened police officers. He was in violation of his parole. He was on an ankle monitor and was booked on a variety of different instances for those crimes. Next slide, and I'll show you exactly what this device actually looks like when we're looking at it when we get an activation. So as you can see, we'll get a map, and it looks like kind of like a Google Map screenshot. And the pinpoint at the end is where we contacted him, where the red flag is. Right at the beginning there, where you see all that scribble scrabble, is where the incident began. So again, we'll get a notification if we set the parameters for this. But if we have a movement more than 10, 15 seconds, we know somebody's doing something they probably shouldn't be doing with our device. So that activates us, and then we start sending officers to respond. So that's basically what it looks like. Again, this particular individual was taking his time. He's going very slowly. He actually was walking it, so he didn't get very far by the time we contacted him, which was the final point of the destination there. Next slide, please. Another thing we're taking a proactive approach here in town is our ALPRs, automated license plate reading cameras. We utilize Flock cameras to do so. And right now, next slide, we have 51 cameras in town, which is huge. That's more per capita, I think, still than any other town that I'm aware of in the United States. Of those, 29 are actually resident owned. Communities using Flock Safety reported a reduction in package and mail theft by up to 90%. So essentially, these cameras, they're not recording nonstop. They're specifically looking for license plates as they travel through the town. And they take a screenshot of the vehicle with the license plate, focused on the license plate itself. Sometimes we are fortunate, especially during daylight hours, if we're wanting to know who the driver of that vehicle was, that we may get a glimpse of them in the driver's seat, which can be beneficial to our case. Flock cameras help us investigate crime by providing objective evidence, capture the license plates, as I said, and vehicle characteristics. So we can search things through Flock, such as we can also search bicycles. It does capture other objects as they pass through our town. One of the types of cameras is called a Falcon camera. And one of the features it has is the ability to capture more details about a vehicle than just the license plate, as I mentioned before. The system reads and captures the color, brand, and type of the vehicle, car, truck, motorcycle, etc. It also captures objects, pedestrians, bicycles, or animals. And these are all details we often need to take the next step in solving a case. Not only is this helping us solve cases and crimes in our town, it also helps us reduce the amount of time we're spending when it comes to things that we shouldn't be following and spending all that time on. And a specific situation I can recall was a service that was delivering handicapped persons in town. There was a reporting party that believed somebody was actually kidnapped, pulled into this van, and taken quickly out of our town. Luckily, we had Flock. We were able to trace down the license plate. We knew exactly when and where this person called it in, and we got a hold of the registered owner of that vehicle, which was a company. We contacted the company, contacted the driver, were able to speak with them directly, figure out what it was that they were doing and where they were doing, get a good explanation, which was all done within approximately 3 to 5 minutes. If that was not the case, we would have spent all day working a possible kidnapping on an unknown individual in an unknown car. We had really nothing to go off of other than it was a van, Sprinter van type, and it was white, and it was in this area. Because of Flock, that was handled in that amount of time. Next slide, please. So I know the chief commander touched on burglaries a little bit. One of the things I like to go over is, I know there will be questions regarding those, but the things that we can do here in the community to help when it comes to this. Some of the things are lock your doors and windows. And I know as simple as that sounds, I would say at least 30%, maybe 25, 30% of the burglaries we see is they'll attempt to break a window and then they'll realize there's a back door open. I don't even need to do that. I'm just going to access it right there. Obviously, there's no alarm on because the door was already open, and I'll have my way inside the house. Use your alarm system. I know it can be tedious. I know there's different types of alarms, and you're going to run into the issues specifically if you have a pet and they're motion sensitive, that your pets are home when you are not. Maybe there's a different way of going about it and focusing it back on whether or not you have a window or glass break or a door opener or something along those lines. Notify us while you are on vacation. We have a vacation situation where you can notify us. We'll go out there about twice a day, check to make sure everything looks okay, notify it in our computer system that we did so, and you can feel a little bit better about being away from your house. Keep exterior and interior lights on during time for daylight savings time. So I like to think of this one as a kid would like to think of playing hide and seek. You go up to a big property with lots of trees and shrubs and bushes, and it's all dark. That is the best place to play hide and seek as a kid because you can hide anywhere and nobody's going to be able to find you. Criminals think the same way. They go driving by these houses and they do these drive-bys way before they ended up actually committing these crimes. They see what they can do, how they can hide, what they can get away with. They track your movements, and then they know this is the place I want to be because this place is easier to get away with what I want to do. Install motion lights around the exterior of your home. Another really easy way to not have to have your lights on all the time necessarily, but have them activated when they should be. Another one of my favorites, become familiar with your neighbors. I cannot tell you how many times my neighbor has called me and asked, did you mean to leave your garage door open right now? Is this person actually supposed to be on your property checking your equipment? Just being familiar with each other and knowing who should be there, who shouldn't be there, what your kind of, general day-to-day life expectancies are, and having that close relationship with people around you. I cannot speak highly enough about it. Having your mail and newspapers and deliveries held or picked up in a timely manner. I actually worked night shift this last week, and I went to 2 separate houses on an alarm call. And both houses, we actually took in packages because we just see that this is an obvious, easy sign left in the middle of the night. Obviously, nobody's been home, and we're going to put those packages in. We don't want to see another break-in happen. Not advertising your travel plans on social media. I know that can be a tough one. I have those challenges in my household as well, but I cannot advocate for that enough. I think we're getting close to the end here. Next slide. That's the end? Okay. So I will end there. I'm sure you guys have some questions for me. So yeah, please. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. My name is Parnian Kabuli. I'm
It is? Okay.
Yep. Volume.
Okay, trying again. Is that good?
Just speak loudly so I can hear you, Lisa.
Okay.
Great.
Name is Parnian Kabuli. I live at 93 Fairfax. I was burglarized on Saturday or
Sorry to hear that.
sometime between Thursday afternoon and Saturday afternoon. 48 hours gone to Carmel. I appreciated everything you said. Some of it I didn't know, but in our neighborhood of Loyden Park, there are cameras. But in the bigger burglary last November at the neighbors, we found out that the cameras were completely useless because the license plate was stolen from somewhere else and put on the car. We also had vans come and meet with women on the street in Loyden Park and take their jewelry. My experience has been less traumatic than theirs, perhaps because I wasn't home. But for me, the fact that technology exists, I'm a former engineer, and so it's natural that the technology is there, and I'm glad we are using it. Being the richest community here, I pay a very good rent for being in your community. But what I would like to know is, for instance, when you have evidence of certain kinds of activities, does anybody sit there and correlate these with anything at all? Because, for instance, all these shots of the cars going through, or bicycles going through, does anybody see if they repeat? If there are some people who are watching our neighborhood, like watching our houses as to who's not home? I mean, is there any kind of work done on the evidence gathered?
Absolutely. So Flock, I mean, no system is going to be perfect in its capability of what it can do or what it does for us. So you named a perfect example of some specific thing that we do see for, highly trained criminals. And what they do is frequently they will go steal a license plate off of a car that looks to be not used very often. For example, like maybe, an older car or a car that's just sitting there and it's full of dust. Obviously, it looks like it hasn't been driven in a few weeks. Maybe take a front license plate that's less obvious, put it on the back of the car, and then quickly go start committing some crimes. So that license plate read, when it goes through our town and gets caught by our camera, won't necessarily come back to the person that we are actually looking for, who is committing this crime in our town, unfortunately. However, we can backtrack and try and work with outside agencies and talk to them and see, hey, was there any surveillance cameras around that house where this license plate does belong to? And if so, hey, did anybody report it? And did anybody see anything? And we start working that. And it just kind of spider webs into other points of our investigation. So yes, to answer your question, we do, especially when we have a case of a burglary, we do a deep dive in our Flock system, both on a patrol level as well as on an investigations level. Sergeant Metzger.
In your case, we, the night before, had been given information from Hillsborough Police Department that we were able to run that license plate in Flock, and we found out that it was in your neighborhood. So we've narrowed down the date and time, most likely that your burglary occurred. So it was able to at least give us a time that your burglary occurred. And it was the same vehicle. I'm sorry? I don't recall off the top of my head. That was something that the officer did on follow-up.
The other burglary on Fairfax was done at dinner time, not in the middle of the night. It was done in a house with cameras and everything that you're suggesting, from going in to out, 4 minutes total. And it was a 400-pound safe that was taken by two guys.
That time frame,
So that time frame you just mentioned, that is the average with the crews that we see around town that are trained and know what they're doing. I think the chief mentioned specifically there was that large burglary with close to $1 million taken a couple of years ago, a few years back. That burglary, there was actually somebody home. It was they were unaware, as well as the burglars were pretty certain were unaware that they were home, because it was a house that was large enough, and the locations that the people were home and the actual location that was being broken into, the master bedroom on the second floor was far enough away. Neither one of them knew each other was there. The burglars did not leave that master bedroom. They entered through a French door on a balcony on that second floor, and they left through the exact same hole. And they got $1 million worth of property in that same house.
Let me come over. People can't hear you on Zoom if we don't have a mic.
I didn't turn it on because I was gone for 48 hours only. So yes, Chief, you're right. I didn't turn on anything. Could you please tell me what kind of camera system? Because if they're covered and no fingerprints and nothing at all, what kind of camera alarm system would notify you guys in time to come?
Well, exterior motion sensors are always something that we're, interested in, as well as interior.
But it has to be connected to something in your system?
I can't specifically tell you what system to use. However, I do know that there are systems that actually connect direct to us and that really cut out that time in cases where there's a middleman and you have to wait for the dispatch center that is working with that security system to notify the PD. All of that takes time. And then you have a list of people that you trust that you provide to that particular security company, each of which will get a call. And it'll ring X amount of times and it'll go to voicemail. Then they're going to move to the next and the next, all quick response time.
So these ring type cameras are not what you're talking about.
It depends on the user. I am a user actually of a Ring camera system. And if you get to the point where you're just kind of getting annoyed with it and you flick it away and don't pay attention to what's actually coming up on your screen, you never know. That could be the one time that it really was somebody breaking into your house, not just somebody delivering a package or knocking on your door trying to sell you something. So if you are adamant and can be sure that every single time you see somebody come to one of your self-monitored camera systems, by all means, it is a great way to do so. But I know personally, I am not that person. So I would advise strongly to maybe looking at an alternative.
And just while we're on the topic of alarm system, you've talked about the Ring cameras, which are great. Those don't come to the police department. That's something that you would monitor yourself. We don't have access to that, nor would we. What you can do, though, is we do have a monitoring system within our dispatch center. So you can have your alarm directly routed to our police department. Because some of the stuff that we've seen with some of these burglaries is contact your alarm company and say, hey, what is my call list? Because we have had actual burglaries where an alarm comes in, they call the alarm company, and then the alarm company gets the notification, they start going down their list. And if the police department's not towards the top of that list and we're not monitoring that alarm, we've had actual burglaries where we don't get a notification of the alarm for 10 to 20 minutes after the alarm has been activated. And so if you're willing, check your alarm system, say, hey, what is my call list? Bump the police department up to the top if you're willing to, and that's only if we're not monitoring the alarm. If we are monitoring the alarm, what happens is we immediately get the notification that the alarm's been set off. We immediately dispatch the officers and the officers start going. And then once the officers are en route, then we start calling the responsibles to make sure we get the quickest response time to that alarm.
And this is an effort to combat what you mentioned, that 4-minute window. That 4 to 5 minutes is the average time it's taking for these guys to go through a house and get what they want and get out.
I'd like to follow up on that 4-minute time interval and the fact that, to my knowledge, you're still on copper line alarm transmission from the resident's home to the police station. And reading about all the residents who don't seem to have alarms, and also knowing that AT&T recently indicated that they want to cease copper line service in California, I've been asking, when we can get into the 21st century and get an internet alarm thing that's instantaneously transmitted from the home to the police department. I've been asking for years. There's millions of dollars that's being stolen here. What's the priority on it?
You have an IP transceiver. It turns out that the project is, and so we do have our alarm system that will allow us to have people connect IP, because most people like myself, you've gotten rid of your landline, correct? What's not accurate is AT&T. They've asked for that to be eliminated, but it's not going to be eliminated for a long time. I can guarantee that. There is another device called a cellular transceiver, cellular communicator that you can get on Amazon. It's about $30, $40. It depends. You can install it yourself. And so the alarm will then, through cellular technology, contact us. We're hoping by early next year. And another comment on the alarms, like the commander said, we do have documented cases where it has been up to 15 minutes before the alarm company has got a hold of us. I will tell you, don't rely on the alarms. The alarm systems are good, but I will tell you, it's a bone of contention for me. We respond to thousands of alarms. Over 90% of those alarms are false. And so we're trying to educate residents. And again, we don't not respond because, oh, it's probably false. We have to go to each and every one of those. It's very time consuming. That's where you need to learn your system. You need to use it and use it accurately. And if you're not aware, our dispatch center, for only $100 permit, will monitor your alarm for free, and it will come right to us. Unfortunately, your alarm company like ADT or Xfinity, they will tell you that they cannot do that because they don't want to lose your business. So you don't even need an alarm company. You can actually have it monitored by us. There are advantages, I think, with ADT if they're doing other monitoring for you. I'm not saying to slight them, but it's just something that you can do. It's one more thing that you can easily do with your alarm system is connect to us so we can respond. Did you have a question?
So one of the things that we did is that we have the alarm system, but then we have a system called UMA. And so basically it goes, it's like a landline, but it goes directly to the police department. And it's, you buy the device, but it's pretty minimal in terms of on a monthly charge. So it's reassuring, especially when we go away on vacation, to know the only factor with it is your internet needs to be on. And one time, squirrels ate a wire before we went away on vacation, and our internet went down. But generally, it's been pretty effective.
I think we had somebody back here. Yes, I'll get to you.
So we get false alarms because we forget that the alarm is on and the dogs want to go out to pee. So we open the door. So what happens in those seconds? Like our alarm company texts us, so we then say this was false.
Very good question. So, she has a question, and we have them often. What happens so we can stop a police response? So from a dispatch perspective, I'm going to let somebody who actually knows answer this question. Oh, yeah, you have to come up front.
My name is Christy Sisko. I'm the communications supervisor here. I know a lot of questions about alarms. So the process for an alarm that comes into our police department, it activates and creates a call on our screen. We dispatch the officers, and then we go into your premise file and we start calling the responsible lists. Sometimes it's a landline, which I know many people don't answer anymore, but we also have cell phones, and we go through the cell phone list for the resident to ask them, we just got a call for an alarm at your house. It's for this zone. Is anybody home? And you say yes or no. You give us a code and you say, yes, I'd like you to cancel, or no, I would like you to continue. At that point, if you say, nope, everything's fine, it was an accident, I forgot to turn the alarm off, we clear it a code so that we know not to charge you. Excuse me, you get 3 free false alarms, and then 4, 5, 6, and upwards of 9 for one resident here, then you do get charged.
Real quick, I know something that has come up before as well is the concern about testing your alarm and having that come to us. Just call us.
Yep, give us
this
a
is
call.
something that's super simple, and just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be testing my alarm, and that could be your alarm company that themselves testing it, or rewiring or redoing. If it wasn't exactly set up the way you now like it, they can come back up, fix it the way you do. Or if it's simply you trying to get to know your system and how it reacts, let us know. And it's easy enough to have us just, you know what, we're not going to respond. And you just give us a call back when you're ready for us to say, hey, it's ready now. Everything's good to go.
And just a quick clarification, you do and alarm company, because they are going to be the people that install your alarm, maintain your alarm. They should receive your low battery zone, your AC loss zone. We at the police department only want your burglar alarms, your fire alarms, and your medical alarms. And burglar alarms can also include a panic alarm or duress alarm, which you either have on your keypad, or some people have a key fob that you can press and it'll come in as a specific panic alarm.
But also too, if you trip your alarm, you can easily call dispatch, not 911, please, but our business line, and just say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I tripped my alarm. They'll ask you those same questions. So for burglaries, prevention is the key. We do offer a program. Thank you, Casey, for reminding me. It's called CPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. Our officers have special training, and at no charge, if you want to call dispatch, set up an appointment, they'll come to your house. They're going to walk through everything and discuss everything we're talking about tonight. You should do this. You need to do that. Hey, this is great. You're doing that. I would take advantage of that. We get a lot of good feedback on it, and you learn a lot from that. Let me come back there. Hang on. Oh, it's called CPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. Sorry, Ravi's been waiting patiently. There you go, sir.
Thank you. So you're right that based on what you said, that maybe 10% of crimes get actually solved. And I don't know what the rate of success is in Atherton. You said you have 2 burglaries a week, 52 a year, 2 a month, 24 a year. And we've had that for 5 to 7 years, as far as I can recall. I don't know how many you have solved, but let's assume that it's pretty close to minimal. So the fact that we have an alarm and you can respond in 4 minutes is nice that you respond, but I think you're not able to catch the culprits because they've gone by then, right? So it's all about prevention. And as the lady at the back asked, and I don't think you really answered her question, is how do you sort of relate the data, or how do you correlate the data that you have on these license plates? For instance, I live in Lindenwood, which is somewhat of a, enclosed with only 3 exits out of there. If you had license plate readers, which can eliminate the license plate of all of the people who live there or who register license plates of their visitors and so on and so forth. And then you're left with a significantly lower amount of license plates that you need to sort of track and correlate somehow, right? And if somebody was seen on Irving Avenue, loitering for X number of hours or whatever, and now you can trigger some investigation. Or you could have cameras at the 3 exits that you can only go in and out of, and kind of, make it even more obvious that you're monitoring this. So it's all about prevention, and I completely understand I need to do all of that, and I do. But yet, every time I read one of your, incident reports, I wonder if I'm the next person. In fact, last week, it was on my neighboring street on Catalpa. So I think we need more technology and personnel to kind of do the prevention part at your end. And I'm not saying that we should not be responsible at all. We should be. So I don't know what the answer is, but merely monitoring license plates after the event is not good enough, I think.
So one thing we actually had recently, I don't know if you guys have heard about the construction burglaries around town. Some of the problems that come up with some of the things that you mentioned, where we don't just have residents in our town. I know we don't have commercial businesses, but we have a huge influx of outside of towners coming into town on a daily basis, whether that be primarily for construction reasons or similar. However, we were successful on a recent case with I believe it was 4 different construction site burglaries. We were able to determine that this particular vehicle that was stopped in the area of one of the last burglaries that we had for this construction site happened to be around within the time frames of the other 3. So again, going back to technology working in our favor in this case, and that case has been submitted to the district attorney's office for prosecution of this individual. So I know it is a little bit of a reactive approach. It is something that we do work on though, and looking for things and seeing if things are out of place and whatnot, but it is definitely helping.
What we are asking you to do is to be more proactive.
Of course.
With the data that you can capture with this technology and see if there are ways in which, you know, you can warn residents, so you can sort of, you know, be armed with more information in the event of a burning.
Sure.
Yeah, unfortunately, I understand and I share your frustration, but I believe that we're doing everything possible that we can do. Some of the things that you're mentioning aren't possible, but we do make every effort to be proactive. And I know there's a question back here, but I'll say it again and I'll keep saying it. This problem isn't going to go away. We can reduce it. It's all about prevention. We're doing everything possible on this side that we can, but we need to have our residents do what we're asking. Keep valuables out of your master bedroom. Light your house up. Have an alarm system. Use it. There's just very simple things that you can do. And I know I talked with one lady, and I think I spoke with you earlier. I get it. One lady I was asking when I was telling her you need to move your stuff out of your bedroom, put your safe in your garage. She said, well, when I get dressed for dinner, it would be inconvenient because I can't get my jewelry. So I asked, what's more inconvenient, that or not having it? Because when it's stolen, I'll tell you, you're not going to get it back. And we've had some unbelievably valuable items, Rose Bowl rings, Super Bowl rings. You're never going to see it again, unfortunately. So the key, and I hope you're listening, is to keep stuff out of your master bedroom, keep it out of other bedrooms, put it somewhere else if you want to keep it, and protect yourself and work with us. So through the partnership, we'll be able to reduce the problem. It's never going to go away. Every community around us is experiencing the very same thing. But we'll never stop, and we're asking you not to stop either. Well, here's an example. They don't go to the typical pawn shop anymore because luckily with technology, we have software. When you go to a pawn shop, you have to show ID, you have to register it, and it goes into the system. So say my ring was stolen, I could look for it. They don't do that anymore. So an example would be, and this is working with the FBI in Southern California, the home where the $900,000 worth of jewelry is stolen, organization to it. It'd be like, I'm the burglar, here's the organized boss, Steve, here's a list, you go get it. They go find it. That's why they're taking purses and everything else. A burglar doesn't want a Prada purse. My wife would like to have a Prada purse. They don't want it, but they're giving it to the organized people, especially jewelry. They're going to Southern California. They're going to the back door of what you would think is a reputable jeweler. He's buying it out in the back alley, putting it in his shop. That's how it works. There is organization to it. They aren't just coming here, 2 guys that think I want a purse and I want a necklace. There's organization to it. That's why I say, don't make it that easy for them. We got to make it difficult. And all the things that we have, the cameras, everything that we do, there's a deterrent factor too. We want people to know that this is not a good place to come, and most likely, hopefully, you would get arrested if you come here. That's the message that we're trying to get out. Come back here to you.
Just going to ask. The bedrooms are good.
Yes, and I'm moving back up here. I'm getting dizzy. With safes, don't keep it in your bedroom. Make it hard. Put it out in your garage, bolt it to the floor, put a box over it that says Christmas decorations. They're not going to find it because they're in and out of the house. As the detective sergeant said, in a few minutes, they're moving, they're going. It's target rich. They want the bedroom. And if there's nothing there, they're going to leave. So make it hard. Put the safe in the garage. Put your other valuables somewhere else. Put it down in the kitchen. They don't go to the kitchen. They don't go to the den. They're up in the bedrooms or they're down in the bedrooms. So put it somewhere that it doesn't even have to be in a safe. Did you have a question?
So it used to be that you could find safety deposit boxes and everyone kept their belongings in safety deposit boxes. Now the banks don't have safety deposit boxes anymore. Do you have a list of preferred safe centers, or is there a chance to put in safety deposit boxes here at City Hall or in the police department? Or is there some way that we could put it outside of our homes?
That's the first I've heard that banks don't have safety deposit boxes anymore. I know that I know for a fact that Bank of America and Wells Fargo does as well. Well, then I would go to a different bank. Unfortunately, as much as I would like to do something here, we can't. I don't know of any other independent centers that offer safety deposit boxes, but I do know that banks still have them. Maybe not your bank, but another bank.
So one of the things that we did that, so we went through a company called Climate Pro. So we actually have steel screen doors on our bedroom and also our family room, because one of the things that Chief had recommended putting these films on these doors, but you cannot do it on sliding glass doors. They're great for windows. So we put some of the film. So for me, they cannot break into our back. I mean, you pay a bit of money, but there's such a reassurance to know that your house is safe.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up on this gentleman's comments. I agree with you that there has to be prevention. And I guess where I disagree with you is I don't think this is a problem that data and technology is going to solve. And I agree with you, Chief, that you're probably doing everything you can. But I think what Atherton does not have enough of is enough officers out patrolling as a visual deterrent for eliminating crime, because you can only hire so many officers. It's a small town. I want to point out, I have friends in Bel Air and Beverly Hills. Bel Air uses the LAPD and they augment it with not police officers. They're much cheaper than police officers, but if they see something suspicious, they call it into the police. Beverly Hills, which has its own police department, the police department contracts with private patrol to augment this type of activity. And I think really, if you want to see a decrease in this type of thing, you have to change the model, because there's only so many officers you could hire.
So you have to have the mic because people on Zoom can't hear.
Yeah, I do agree that in fact, I emailed the chief last week, which is why I'm here today, because he responded to me. And I talked about how the patrols in the area have sort of, gone down, or at least that's my sense, because I don't see the patrols out there. And I guess it's because we don't have enough officers. And your suggestion that we use some form of, private security or some cheaper ways of doing it would be nice.
Yeah, I will say that I believe our staffing is very adequate. Even with 10 more police officers, half day, half night, there's still a lot of miles to cover. And also too, it's a matter of budgets and what can we afford and what's needed. I'll take as many officers as my boss would let me hire, but I believe our staffing levels are very good. Just because you don't see a police car doesn't mean they are not roaming around, because they are. The one good thing about false alarms, I will say a good thing, is it does allow our officers to get from normal areas back into the parts of the neighborhood and get out there and be seen. So they are on patrol. Did you have a question, sir?
Thank you, Chief. One quick question. Of the 2,500 homes in the town, how many are connected to your security system?
About 1,200.
So about half. Okay. Most of those landlines?
Yes. There's some cellular communicators as well. Get my steps in.
Can I move away from the alarm system and ask you for a tip? If I was home and they had come, especially if I was in bed and I woke up, what was I supposed to do? Can you give me some tips?
Grab your phone, get to the bathroom, lock the door, call us. They don't, 99.9% of the time, that was a mistake. They do not want you to be there when they're breaking in to take your stuff. That is not, from what we've seen, that is not the desire.
To screaming or
Yep.
don't
Make
come here
noise.
and all that?
Make noise,
Yes or
get
no?
somewhere safe as fast as possible.
Yeah, one good piece of news I can give you, just like the sergeant said, they want nothing to do with you. We have had a couple documented cases where they have come in when someone's home, just like you said. She yelled, "Get out," they left. They want nothing to do with you. The information we have is they're not armed. They don't want anything to do with you. They may want to do something with us when we arrive, but we're trained to handle that. But they don't want anything to do with you. They're going to be out. So if you hear some noise, make some noise, get some lights on, call 911. No, they're
Average burglar, you mean, like what we've seen? Usually around 4 to 5. We have a driver and about 3 or 4 people that are hitting the house itself. Driver standing by either right in front of the house or circling the block, waiting to get that signal, and then they take off.
okay. If you think of a question, okay, we're going to move on to the next topic, but you'll be the last one.
Do we have any leads on these group? Is it a Chilean group that came before? Is it an LA group that's tied up in here? Or what are the leads?
Not on that. And I've sort of changed my narrative. It doesn't really matter where they're coming from or who they are. What matters is they are coming. And what matters is they're being successful here. So we haven't heard about that group lately. What we do know, I believe, is recent burglaries are not them. And they're people from the area, maybe East Bay, maybe other areas. Okay, so we're going to move on. I'll have the commander take back over, please.
All right. So getting to our next speaker, we're going to have Communications Supervisor Christy Cisco, who's going to come up and talk about the role of our dispatch center.
Good evening. So like Commander said, my name is Christy Cisco, Communications Record Supervisor for Atherton PD. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what a dispatcher does a day in a life of a dispatcher. So while we may not have the call volume of, say, Menlo Park or East Palo Alto or San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, we are unique and pretty amazing people because we are one dispatcher in the center. So when you call 911 because somebody has now come into your house, Antoinette in the back, she's going to answer the phone. And while she's speaking with you, she's starting officers to your house. Let's say, and hopefully this isn't the case, but we're going to go worst case scenario, someone's injured. So now she has to call fire and ambulance on another telephone line. And now you've got a business phone call because somebody's calling, let's say, to test their alarm. And it's daytime, and now we've got the counter, somebody coming question. So we have to go, hold on. So we're multitasking like other agencies don't have to do because, again, we are one dispatcher. We have 4 full-time dispatchers and myself as a 5th dispatcher that covers during the daytime to help out and also night shift. We range anywhere from about 4 years experience to over 25 years experience. So we have an amazing range of knowledge and capabilities. When you call for any question or 911 or whatever, we have our, what we call our 7 W's, the who, what, where, when, why, how, and weapons. Where did the incident happen? Whether it's a home or an intersection because it's in Atherton or because it's an accident. When did this happen? Okay, is it happening now where we need to hold on a second and get officers started? Did it happen an hour ago where it's not quite as urgent? Or did it happen over a time frame where we can take the time now to ask you the questions and get all the information, and then we'll dispatch an officer out? So we got the where, we got the when. What happened? Okay, was it a burglary? Are you reporting an accident? Are you reporting a gas-powered leaf blower? Okay. Let's see, we say who. Do we know who did this? Do we know if it's a burglary where you don't know, but maybe it's a fraud where you've had an issue with a family member? So these are all questions that are going to help give us information and paint a picture. We are the voice and you are the eyes to what is happening or what has happened. So then we can tell the officers as they're going to the call. We want to know how it happened. Was it a break-in, a window smash, or if there was a weapon involved? So that's why we ask a lot of questions. It's not to frustrate you. It's just to get as much of a picture as possible as we can. In terms of alarms, I know we touched on them. So again, we do monitor about 1,600 alarms within the town of Atherton. We do test alarms. We have people call asking to test their alarm because they're not sure they're connected to us, or they're installing a new system, or they want to put the test because they're changing batteries. Please give us a call. We're more than happy to put you on test, and then just let us know when it's back in service. Again, just to go back over, if an alarm comes into our panel, it populates on our screen. We start the officers responding. Then we start going down our list of responsibles to try to ascertain, is this a good alarm? Do you think anybody's there? Are you at home? Are you not at home? Are you expecting a housekeeper or a family friend? And then you get to decide if you want us to continue to respond or if you don't. When in doubt, we are here to respond. If you are not sure, you're not expecting anybody, please let us respond and make sure that everything's okay. That's just kind of the quick, I just want to give a dirty overview of what dispatchers do. And again, we are such a unique group because we are one dispatcher, multitasking, especially when you have a big incident like the accident where we had the injury accident on El Camino at Atherton Avenue, where one car hit multiple other cars and then the people fled. And Antoinette was one of the dispatchers working, and she's monitoring Menlo's channel, getting officers going. Then she is taking multiple calls for 911 and still getting officers going, and then calling for an ambulance. So if we sound a little stressed once in a while, or we're short because we have specific questions, that's why. Okay. Questions about dispatch?
You want to talk about the blue form, the keys that we have, and the importance of the blue form and updating it?
So we do have what we call our blue form because it is a form that comes on a blue piece of paper. It's our resident information form, which is, it provides information for your premise, your house. Who do you want us to call in case of an emergency? What are the responsible phone numbers, your cell phones, anybody else? You have an alarm, what's your alarm company? Gate code, because to be able to get onto your property, do you have any dogs? Are they friendly? And we can send that out to you via mail. It's all secured information. It's not shared anywhere beyond our database. We also offer house keys if you want to give us your house key so that we can respond with a house key if there's a problem, especially if fire and ambulance need to get into your house because you're down on the ground and you can't open the door. We have the abilities for keys. Again, they're locked boxes that only we at the police department have access to. We have an alarm installation form if you're interested in having your alarm connected directly to us. It's coming in, it's giving you a code. That code you give to your alarm company, and they should be able to program your alarm panel to speak with our communication system. And then that's also your code to cancel the alarm.
Quick, sort of funny story about that information and the key. So, called not 911, she called the business line. On her way to the San Jose airport, thought she left her oven on. Could we go check? Maybe call too small, but we still go. Grab the key and go. She did leave the oven on. So it's great. I don't know how many keys you think we have.
Oh gosh. Each box has about we're just over 1,500. The next.
Yeah. So 1,500 people have entrusted us with the key. It's important. Again, I've always wanted to have a gate and a wall. Someday, maybe I will. But if we can't get in, we can't help you. And so if you want to trust us with that, a lot of people have. I've never heard of that anywhere in the law enforcement world. It was pretty amazing, especially when I first got here. Like, what are all these keys? It makes a lot of sense here in this town. It's a very unique town that we all love very much.
With technology, people are getting rid of keys and they're going to the punch in a code type of doors. We'll take those codes as well.
You also have combination for the gates too.
Yes. Yep, you have your gate codes.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to our next section.
Great. And before we move on, just two quick comments about our dispatch center and some of the things that are going on there. If you get a call from us, say, hey, your alarm went off. If you're unsure, have us respond. Because we actually did have a burglary where an officer was around the corner, was there within seconds. They got a hold of the resident and they said, oh, we just left home. Must be an accident. It was an actual burglary occurring, and the officer was there while the burglars were there, and they canceled us, and so the officers left. So one thing to keep in mind. The other second thing is if you happen to call 911, whether it's on purpose or by accident, don't hang up the phone. Always stay on the phone, talk to the dispatcher. They will let you know, hey, we're good, officers are there. Typically, the dispatchers want you to stay on the phone until you see an officer or until you are talking with the officer. That's how long they want to keep you on that phone, especially if there's something going on. They want to know you're safe because depending on what's going on, the officers could ramp up their response. If they're not already going with lights and sirens to this call, if they hear that someone's in distress or there's something going on, the dispatcher is going to pick up on that and we will ramp up our response with the lights and sirens to get there even faster. So
Quick follow-up. So on 911, it's been my experience numerous times. Something happens and we say, well, did you call 911 or why didn't you? Wasn't sure it was a real emergency, didn't want to bother you. 911 is how you get a hold of us, and we do have a business line. But if you think that's something like see something, say something we need to know, call 911. You're not going to be belittled from our professional staff. And believe me, we're paid very well to be bothered. That's our business. Bother us. We want to be bothered.
Question about the gate. If the gate has, I believe it's called the Knox key on it for the fire department, do you have the key for that or you need the code?
we do not have keys to the Knox boxes. Those are retained by the fire department and only the fire department has those. Next up for our speaker. Oh, one more comment.
I know the gate codes can be extremely helpful for us for all the calls that we were just talking about, but just for an example of a call completely different than anything we've already discussed that I was a part of within the last year was someone who fortunately did give us our their gate code, and we responded to a drowning victim in the backyard. The only other person that wasn't drowning on site happened to be trying to help this woman and help her recover at the time. Because we had a gate code, we were able to get into that property extremely fast and got there to conduct CPR for 4 minutes before fire did. And she actually made it and went to the hospital for recovery.
Thank you for sharing that. And next up, we're going to go over our traffic operations, and Motor Casey McDonald is here to present.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight, and thank you for attending. Myself and Sergeant Metzger, who is also in the back, he is our traffic sergeant who oversees everything with the traffic division of the police department. As we all know, during the day, just with schools alone, we gain about 8,000 people in attendance in our town. And then you also toss in all the construction work and everything. So we have a very high volume of traffic. And during the day, traffic is a priority for us. So just some of our objectives for you all during the day. Our main goal is to reduce the number of collisions through enforcement or education. So just because we pull you over, it doesn't always mean that you're going to get a ticket. We have the abilities to give written warnings or a ticket if it feels suffice. But our main goal at the end of the day is to try and get people to learn that they may have had a bad driving habit in that moment, or they just have a bad driving habit in general, and we just want to try and correct that so everyone can be safe. We also assist the town engineers with providing real-time traffic information about what's actually going on in the real world with the roads. You know, hey, there's a lot of traffic here. There's not. Speed humps are necessary here. Maybe we need, different types of traffic engineering to help traffic flow better. But on top of all of our duties, we also supplement with patrol calls. So because we're out in the streets, we can also be called to calls for service to assist patrol. As we mentioned, we are a small agency, so we help each other out with everything. There's also parking issues. We all know construction sites. That is a big thing that we have to deal with parking issues, is just the construction workers not parking where they should and stuff like that. So we help mitigate those issues. And then also kind of one thing that we like to pride ourselves in is our collision investigation skills. We mentioned a few things tonight, starting with Flock, and then also dispatch briefly mentioned the major collision that we had just, was it over the summer last year, right here at Atherton Avenue and El Camino, where There was a large theft from the city of Menlo Park. The people fled. They fled northbound on El Camino, and as soon as they crossed through the intersection of El Camino at technically Fair Oaks Lane, major collision occurred. 3 vehicles involved, major injuries, and carnage everywhere. So just to kind of talk about what we do in that instance. So we mentioned Flock. Flock became a key role in this investigation, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So we get there. First thing is preservation of life. Survey everyone for their injuries and make sure that they are stable and safe, and then allow fire to get in and they can, do all their life-saving efforts. Then next, it's how did this all occur? This crash was kind of easy because we knew that there was a very fast speeding vehicle coming down El Camino, and that's most likely what caused this. However, there's a key factor in collision investigations, which is called the primary collision factor. So although we had people involved in a collision that were involved in other crimes, and then they ultimately fled the scene, we also have to prove that they were at fault for that crash. So just because they're involved in it and they did a whole bunch of other heinous things that day doesn't mean that they caused that crash. And Flock became a key role for this investigation, which we had a lot of people transported to the hospitals. We weren't able to get statements from them, or because of the severity of the crash, they just don't recollect anything from it. So we went to Flock and were able to see cars at that intersection at the same time. We're able to get phone numbers from looking up the registered owners, and called some people and asked, hey, what did you see? And ultimately through that, we were able to prove definitively that these folks who committed all sorts of other crimes also were the primary collision factor for this crash. Thus, we're able to submit charges for hit and run. And then some other things that we do also is when you folks call in and you have complaints about vehicles speeding on certain roads. Of course, we're out there every day. We know if you call about certain roads like Stockbridge or Selby, we know cars speed there. We try to get those to those areas as much as we can. But if it's smaller streets where we're just kind of thinking, I don't know if cars speed down that road, we actually have a tool that we use, which is a radar recorder. It's kind of a gray box that we preferably hang from a telephone pole, but we could do it from trees or whatever is usable in the area. And we'll leave it up there for a week, collect data from vehicles traveling through that area, and then we'll analyze the data. And if the data shows that, hey, yeah, there are a lot of cars speeding, then, you'll see us in that area, as we call working that area a lot more to try and get drivers more aware and reduce the speeds on those streets. Sometimes we get complaints about vehicles speeding on certain streets, and we collect the data, and it's one or two cars out of one street in particular. It was about 15,000 cars over 7 days. And there was, only a handful that were excessively above the speed. You may not see us from that because there's always going to be an anomaly on streets. But, we may still go out there and try and catch those few people just to try and get everyone to slow down. Next. So these are just some statistics from our fiscal year of 23-24. Obviously, speeding is a high priority for us. So just from this last fiscal year, we had 806 citations issued and 1,344 warnings issued for a total of 2,150. So that just goes into, we're not always out there to write to a ticket. We want to educate people. We want to get people to slow down through positive interactions with the police department. Other moving violations, that kind of just goes into failing to yield to pedestrians, failing to yield to oncoming traffic, all those sorts of things, for a total of 2,000 tickets issued. Equipment violations, parking violations, commercial vehicles, bicycles, DUI arrests, and suspended license. So over this last year, we had 20 DUI arrests and 81 people were contacted who were ultimately found to be driving with a suspended license. And so we submit cases to the district attorney because there's different types of license suspensions that you can obtain, and some of those carry hefty fines, some of those carry jail time. So we like to let the district attorney's office know when we encounter those. Bicycle violations, last year we had a total of 43 overall citations issued. And then commercial vehicles. So commercial vehicles, we deal with those a lot in town with all the construction, and we have a lot of ordinances surrounding commercial vehicles. About at least once, we shoot for twice a year. We get the highway patrol out here, and we actually set up at mobile weigh stations. And when we set up mobile scales with the CHP, and us and CHP will join together to try and, you know, get these truckers, make sure that at least their trucks are in line and safe to be on the roads. Next slide. I think that's okay. Any questions?
Hi, we live on Isabella near El Camino, and we're seeing it's not bicycles, but it's these electric vehicle scooters. They're e-bikes and stuff. They're violating all the time, especially on El Camino. Is there any tracking on these e-bikes, or are they lumped in with the bicycle violations?
They're lumped in with the bicycle violations because at the route they're still considered bicycles.
Okay.
So that's where you would see those.
Drive on the sidewalk, road, what?
So sidewalks are jurisdictional. So it's technically not illegal per the vehicle code to have a bicycle on a sidewalk. However, some cities do have ordinances prohibiting bicycles to be on sidewalks. Here in Atherton, we do not. We have one neighborhood with sidewalks.
Steve, like, if you're an e-bike driver, are you in the car lot, are you in the bike lane, or in the road?
So there are a total of 5 classes of e-bikes, 4 classes of bicycles, and then 1 class considered a moped. And depending on those classes, they can be either in bike lanes, in the lane of travel, or they're considered basically a motorcycle.
I really like the data that you've presented here. I think it's very interesting. And I noticed that, you know, for like the equipment violations and the commercial vehicle, you're giving more citations than warnings. But when it comes to speeding, you're giving more warnings than citations, for example. Does it have to do with resident, non-resident status?
No, resident, non-resident status is not a factor in how we choose our enforcement. I can speak to me personally. I can't speak for every officer, but I know my criteria is if I feel that my interaction with you, that you're understanding of the violation you committed, and that you're going to be more aware of it, then I feel that a citation isn't necessarily needed at that point. However, if through conversation, you know, you're just not understanding the severity of your violation, it may escalate me to have to issue you a citation at that point, because now it's, you know, hey, I got to do something more to try and get you to understand that, you know, we need you to either, in one case, slow down.
Right on.
All right. Thank you, Officer McDonald. And moving on to our next presenter, it's going to be School Resource Officer, Officer Andrew Ha.
Thank you. So my name is Officer Andrew, and there's a PowerPoint that goes with this. In the town of Atherton, we have multiple schools. The biggest one is going to be Menlo Atherton High School. It's got upwards of 2,400 students. It's the biggest school in San Mateo County, including San Francisco, and going down, well, San Jose has one school that's larger. We also have Sacred Heart Prep. We have Menlo School, Menlo College, Los Lomitas, Laurel School, and Encinal. So as of right now, we have one school resource officer that patrols all the schools. However, our chief came up with a great program to adopt a school. Every officer has a school they go by. They so-called adopt the school. They stop in. If anything comes up, I usually try to go in there and to handle it. A little bit about me. The SRO position is it's very specialized. It takes a certain person to do it because it's around juveniles all day long. My wife tells me I have the same brain capacity as a juvenile, so it works out really well for me. My name's Officer Dimitri Andruha. I've been here at the Atherton Police Department for approximately 5 years. Prior to this, I was in a different department for 2 years. Prior to that, I was a high school teacher for 15 years. So I have a lot math. So I taught everything from algebra or pre-algebra up through calculus. I also was a wrestling coach, so I got to see kids in a different perspective as well. So am I qualified to be an SRO? I would think so, but I'll leave that up to you guys. I've already gone over the schools we cover. Next one. So being a school resource officer, you have to have certain traits. And a lot of these traits kind of coincide with being a teacher, even-tempered. It's amazing how often kids want to get under your skin and just to goad you a little bit. You just have to sit back and take it. Patience. Some of you guys might have kids. You must be patient with children. A mediator. Lately, I found a couple, there's been a few fights happening. It's here and there. It's just a matter of sitting them down and talking to them, trying to explain to them what's going on. How is this going to affect your future? A mentor. I've popped into wrestling mats with the kids a few times, try to mentor some of the kids. Hopefully it works out. Who knows? We'll see in the future. Hostage negotiator. If you ever try to talk to a kid, it's like negotiating with terrorists. And I've actually gotten a unique opportunity to be part of the hostage negotiation team. There's a team that's part of Redwood City, us, and Menlo Park. We all come together and we train on this monthly. We got to be able to see different perspectives. Not every kid in our school, fortunately or unfortunately, comes from the town of Atherton. A lot of those kids do come from East Palo Alto, Menlo Park, as well as Redwood City, North Fair Oaks area. So they have a different perspective on life in a lot of cases. And you got to have thick skin. Those kids, if you don't have thick skin, they will get to you and they'll tear you down pretty quick. As far as what the SRO does, we don't believe in incarceration. We do everything we can not to take anybody to jail. We don't want to have that whole idea of we're just going to take them to jail and have them be somebody else's problem. We have to rehabilitate them. It's all about diversion. We work with different programs. We are in a unique situation where we do work with different jurisdictions. We do have East Palo Alto. We do have Menlo Park. So therefore, we have to work with those departments. And they have various programs within the school that we can put the kids into. We have various mediator programs where the kids will sit down and do group talks. As well as there's other programs outside of school. There's Live in Peace is a great example. We work quite a bit with them as well. Let's see. As far as I wanted to talk about a couple other things. So what is the role of the SRO in the schools? I've managed to walk into classes. I teach classes, so I assist teachers and staff in the schools. I go to Encinal, I go to Laurel, and as well as Las Lomitas, and I talk to the kids, and it's amazing. I can have a horrible day at the high school, walk in and see all these little kindergarten or first graders, and the day's amazing all of a sudden. I give presentations to staff and students, and as well as the whole schools. Counselor, mentor. I do interventions. Schools call me in to do interventions with various kids. Sometimes I just see them out in the yard and I talk to them. Provide self-development. Provide info sessions to parents. So oftentimes parents call me, what do I do about this child? What do I do? My child is vaping. My child's doing this. How do I saw that look. How do I fix this? Well, there is no fix. It's a matter of how do you talk to your children to get them to understand what's going on. And then if you notice, the last thing on the list is a law enforcer. The last thing we want to do is come in and take kids out of the schools. Then my last slide here is going to be my contact info, email, phone number. And if you really want to see me, I'm at MA every single day, all day. I'm walking around school, which is the next thing I want to talk about real quick. If you notice, what I wear is a little bit different than what a lot of the other officers wear. I do wear cargo pants. And the reason I wear cargo pants is there's a lot of kids that my pockets get filled. I'm on foot patrol all day long. So Narcan, I don't know if you guys have heard of Narcan. It stops opioid overdoses. You know, that's a big thing now. That goes in a pocket. I have tourniquets in the pocket just in case, God forbid, the worst possible scenario happens. I have gloves in pockets. My pockets, I walk around and the pockets are all bulging everywhere. So I do wear different outfits just because of what I do. And then somebody mentioned something. I wanted to bring one last thing up. The window film for burglaries. So there's also another company called 3M. They also do window films. What they do is, and I've gone to these presentations, they're actually pretty impressive. They'll sit there with a bat and try to break the window with a bat, and they can't get through it. They try to shoot through it with a gun. They can't get through it. It's a very, very, very impressive film they put on the windows. So those are going into the school supposedly very soon as well. Any questions? I know it was very short. Oh boy. I was hoping you guys say no.
No, I have to ask a question. I did my ride along with you for one.
I know, I remember
and
that.
my kids went to MA, or
Yep.
at least my oldest did. So do you carry a firearm at MA?
I do.
Okay, and so if you're at MA most of the time and officers are just dropping by the other school, what percent of the resources of the police department go to Menlo Atherton as opposed to all the other schools put together?
I'm not sure I'm following the question. What percent of the resources?
Yeah,
It's just me.
people's time.
It would be me.
Okay, so you're 100% at MA and really there's nobody at the other schools. It's just stopping
Well, I pop
by.
in. I mean, I'll go pop in. Well, I mean, I do make it a point to drive around. So if anything comes up, like today or yesterday, I was at Sacred Heart Prep. I stopped by Menlo School. I'll stop in once in a while, but they don't need the attention, nor do they have the population that MA has. And MA, what I've noticed is that when I do leave MA, something always happens.
But he did mention we have an adopted school program.
That's what I'm
So-
talking about, yeah.
So we have officers, depending on, we have officers that days and days off. When they're on, their assignment is Encinal, Laurel, Los Lomitas, or Selby. And so they're the ones that are filling in the void because we do have a great relationship with the school district. They're paying half of his salary. So because they're doing that, the need is at MA. So, don't get us wrong. MA is a great school. They have wonderful academic programs. It's a very safe campus and school, but stuff unfortunately does happen. I always give it as an analogy. I grew up in a very small town of 1,000 people. They had a full-time police department, full run city. This is a small a campus in one part of town. And then we're grappling with, not only students from Atherton, as you mentioned, East Palo Alto and Menlo Park. It's very dynamic. I don't know how he does it every day, but I do know he does a fantastic job. I wish we had another one. We're actually working on that with the school district for MA, but we don't leave the other schools uncovered.
I had a question going back to the window film. Is it only for?
You would probably have to call the companies directly and ask them those questions because who knows what.
I'd be curious as to what you see the biggest issue with the high school kids is now, and if you've noticed that changes over time or that's fairly consistent.
In my 20 years of being around juveniles, kids being impetuous. I mean, that's the best way I can describe it. I don't know how many people here have teenage kids. I have a 13-year-old, and the decisions that she makes sometimes, I'm like, but they just act. They act without thinking. Everything's based around social media. Everything's based around the phone. They try to get the most amount of likes on Instagram, or I don't even know if Instagram's cool anymore. I think it's Snapchat and TikTok. But it's just, they make decisions without thinking about the repercussions of it. Now, in certain cases, I'll be honest, in certain cases, these decisions that they make have life-altering ramifications. So, you got some kids that are driving cars at the age of 14 years old. I mean, they get in a car accident, they run somebody over. It can have some massive ramifications in the long run. So as far as your question goes, I mean, honestly, it's just being impetuous, and I don't think that's changed. I think that's always been the same. I think there's always going to be trends. E-bikes are a big one now. Vaping is huge, but when I was growing up, smoking was huge. So you're trading one vice for another, I guess. I don't know.
What is your program for gun detection and drug entry to the high school?
For gun detection?
Yes. What kind of screening, or is there anything at all?
Looking at them.
Oh.
Honestly, I'll be honest with you. It's developing relationships with the students. So knowing that there are guns on campus, and I hate to say it, but occasionally it does happen. The kids, I've developed relationships with the kids from various neighborhoods, from East Palo Alto, from Menlo Park, from Atherton, from Redwood City, and they're as scared as we are. Don't think that we're the only ones that are scared of this. They're very scared of this as well. So they come up to me and they will tell me, "Hey, so and so might have a gun today," and everybody here can attest to that. I'm searching backpacks daily, and it's not that I honestly think it's there. We do everything we can, but if the kids tell me things, I take it seriously. I take it. I don't take it with a grain of salt. I take it under advisement and I move with it. As far as drugs go, so I haven't seen anything other than marijuana, and I'm not going to say marijuana is okay because it's not. But I also can't stop that all day long because unfortunately in certain cases, the school doesn't do anything about it either. So it's a matter of working as a whole unit to say yes. So if we do find it, we confiscate it, we remove it from the campus, we get rid of it. In order for us to really do anything that's going to have any bite, it's sales case. They have to have a certain amount, a certain quantity. You have to be able to write a report stating that they had this amount, it wasn't for personal use, so on and so forth. And other than that, we don't get other drugs. I haven't seen methamphetamine. I haven't seen fentanyl, thank God. I haven't seen cocaine, nothing else. I haven't seen it, and I haven't heard of it popping up at our school. It's it's an interesting community. You would think that you would see more of it, but I haven't.
Thank you, Officer Andruha. And at this point, I think it's time for a general question and answer. So we'll open up the floor to anyone who has any other questions.
You know, in United States, we have CIA who finds things all over the world because they have undercover people. We have FBI who finds all kinds of things. What on earth are we doing about these purses? These purses are not being sold to stores. They must be able to easily find out who sells them where. And again, not that I'm sour because I lost 5 or 6 purses. I just want to use that as a clue to who these people are and how we can do something about it. The fact that nobody has spoken about any kind of collaboration with any, or we don't have any undercover people trying to figure out where these things are being sold, it still bugs me. And so, yes, I'm a little agitated. You all forgive me for that. But I would like to know what kind of effort. You said, Chief, that all kinds of communities are having this problem, especially the ones that can afford these kinds of items. So there must be some kind of an effort, and why aren't we part of it?
Closely with the FBI and authorities in Southern California to try to track that. It's just a difficult crime to track. And unfortunately, I'm not making light of it. People have a perception of law enforcement and what we can do from TV. I wish we were like NCIS or CSI and we could solve a crime with DNA in an hour. That's not practical. It's not how it works. It's much more complicated than that. And burglary is a tough nut to crack. And I get back to the message you're probably tired of hearing is prevention and making sure this doesn't happen in the first place. But as for tracking that, it's very difficult because, like I said, they're on the black market. They're organized. They're moving down to other parts of the country to get rid of it. And so it's difficult to track.
And in addition to, I can tell you, we are part of task force. We have been working with the FBI. We are working with other groups to try to solve these crimes and figure a lot of this stuff out. But that is typically stuff that we're not going to broadcast. We're not going to say, oh, we have this lead. We're doing this. We're doing that. Because as soon as the people who are committing these crimes find out that we're on to them, they are gone. They're destroying evidence. They're fleeing. They're going to other states, other countries, and then they're gone. And then we will never get the closure that we are. So these things are happening. They are going on behind the scenes, but we can't be very vocal as a police department to say, this is what we're doing. We're doing X, Y, and Z. These are leads that we have. Because then if we go public with that, the people who are committing these crimes will know that we're onto them. They will change their tactics and they will disappear.
Totally understand that, and I respect that. The thing is that if I'm the victim of and I ask questions, I should be able to get something to show me that somebody did something that would at least make me feel a little better about, repay. Not that I'm an owner in that, but the people pay very big property taxes in this time. And you're entitled to some kind of activity on their behalf. And when there is nothing for even the victim, it feels wrong. I don't know how to explain it, but I hope you got my point.
Absolutely. And I completely agree. And yes, that's one of the things that we try to pride ourselves on as our officers conducting that follow-up and doing all that and being in contact with the victims of crimes. And so it sounds like we need to get a little more contact with you and work with you a little more, which we'll definitely do in the future.
Any other questions before we close? Well, hey, I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight, spending a couple hours with us. I know it's important to you. It's important to us. It doesn't end here. So if there's questions that you have, information that you need, assistance that you need, you just merely call dispatch and they know how to get a hold of us and we'll respond to that. A couple programs that we didn't mention that we're excited about. We leverage technology. We're very fortunate in this town to have Elizabeth Lewis as one of our council members and great support from the council. We have a healthy budget and they support the use of technology where other cities may not. Flock is an example. We were the first agency in the state of California to get the Flock cameras. Now everybody in this county has it. We just started a drone as a first responder program. And very simply, our drone right now lives in a garage on top of our police garage. And so when you call 911, we have your address. As the dispatcher is talking with you, they mentioned they have like 8 arms. They're merely hitting a button. The drone launches out of the garage. It'll be at your house before the officer is there. And as it comes over your home, it drops the camera. And what it allows us to see is what's happening at your home. Think of it from an officer safety perspective. We come to your home with the gate or the wall. We don't know if someone's hiding behind the pool house. So it gives us an incredible advantage. Also, too, if we can see the suspects that are leaving before we get there, we can then follow them, start following them with Flock. So it's an incredibly important program, and we're very proud of that. On a side note, we also have our new therapy dog named Emmy. If you've not met Emmy, if you would have told me that a police department's going to have a therapy dog when I first started, no way that would happen. This is the standard across the country. She's an amazing dog. It's backed by science. The interaction with the dog helps us reduce stress and blood pressure. Line of work. We also use her in the schools. She's used for victims of crime. She helps with victims when they're testifying in court, when they're here for an interview. So it is incredibly, we smile about it, but it actually is a very incredible program backed by science. So again, I'll leave you with these 2 things. I've been doing this kind of work for a long time. I've never been in a community where the residents are so outwardly supportive of their police department. I've never seen anything like it, and I appreciate that. And it isn't anything that we've done in the last few years. This goes back decades when officers were providing that foundation of providing assistance to you. And we live by two mantras. No call too small, and we mean that. We get some that I swear are too small. Even the commander will say, I don't know. I said, well, we got to go. So no call too small. And then if it's legal, we're going to do it for you. It may have nothing to do with police work, but you don't know where else to turn. It happens all the time. If it's legal, we're going to do it for you. Officer's going to respond. We're going to get the information for you, and we're going to get your situation solved. So I'm proud of that work. I'm proud of our officers. Have a great Thanksgiving and a wonderful holiday.